Hey, ladies and gentlemen, hi, this is Eddie. This is our last part of our Juneteenth um, three-part episode that we've done throughout the day as you celebrate or commemorate, however you want to term it, uh, the Juneteenth holiday. The first two parts gave the introduction of how slaves got to Texas and then walked into the actual general order that freed slaves on Juneteenth. This last part, we want to talk about the idea of what happened after June 19th. But for that, I'm going to actually bring my wife in for this last part, and we will discuss some of the issues that happened post. Um, Hello, Tina.
Hi.
All right. So, yeah, you seem a little bit really, really happy, which is good. Happy that you're happy to be here. Hope your Juneteenth
Always
went
happy.
well. Um, what we want to do is we want to talk about the issues that the slaves, the former slaves, the freedmen faced post June 19th. And we want to take it from actual testimonial and what they actually dealt with. Um, most of what Tina is really here for, what Sean Anthony and Teddy did earlier, is to ask questions that I know the history, I've read the history that maybe I won't think of, and we'll take about the next 15 minutes to do that. Uh, but let's get into it. So we know that June 19th, 1865, in Galveston, Texas, that these slaves were freed. They were believed to be the last slaves when the Trans Mississippi Army finally surrendered to the Union. But one of the things that is nefarious is that, as we spoke in the last episode, is that they were told to stay in place, to not leave, and to work that last season off because the crops were more important than the than their welfare and their ability to leave. I wanted to touch, Tina, on the fact that from someone's actual testimony, numerous slaves, in fact, um, talked about what they had to deal with. One in particular said the government man made his rounds on the plantation after it had to force the planters to acknowledge emancipation. The mere threat, the mere thought that the government, that the Union would show up with military people was enough to scare some, but not all, to treat their former slaves, these freemen, as actual employees. And that should be understood because if you've been a slave under me, you're going to continue to be a slave under me. Some said they were still whipping them, beating them, molesting them uh, within months after June 19th. So, have you ever remember in history hearing about um, people being automatically freed?
Well, a lot of people say things like, we're not even free now. And even with Juneteenth and remembering Juneteenth, a lot of people say, we're not free now, and giving us this holiday isn't even enough, um, to say anything. But I think it's a start. And I think that, yeah, that in a way, you know, we are still being um, beaten because whether it's small slurs, demeaning, degrading slurs, because they say, oh well, words don't hurt. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Words cut deep. They can cut and they can carve. So yeah, even now we still overcoming the whip of the things that we have no control of. Now I can't speak as a slave myself, but inheriting this sun-kissed skin, yeah, we are still under a great deal of uh, tongue lashing, beatings, and ways that we're being deprived, and which we can consider being beaten, not physically, but definitely beaten.
Well, considering that, right? If you're considering that, and that's a well um, made point. But one of the things that I want us to touch on is that most people during this holiday are telling folks that slavery was over. And the reason why we're celebrating this is because it was the end of slavery. We know, in fact, that that was not the case. As you just stated, um, people were are still going under some systemic sort of repression.
And what they
Uh,
call it, the Kansas City Shuffle, when they make you look one way and they really doing something the other way. Was that the Kansas
well,
City
you're
Shuffle?
talking about Lucky Number 11. That's a movie,
Yeah, but
but
what
it's
did he call that?
considerable.
And
Yeah,
it's
you look
really
one
that's
way and
what
you
it
look
is.
the other. Well, it
Because they're
is.
like, oh, you're free, but at the same, in the other hand, they're holding this and they're calling it a law. While meanwhile, they have the Capitol riots that they had, and they said we held you to those things, and you had your free will. You didn't have to abide by those things, but you chose to. So that's on you. So it's like in one hand they know we're supposed to be bound by the law, but they're not. So again, be
So let's talk about the law. Let's talk about this real quickly because remember we only have 15 minutes. Try to do this quickly, but let's talk about that. So if the 13th Amendment, right, uh, is what told you you're neither slave nor involuntary servitude, that you're free, right? Uh, there was really no law. There was a proclamation and an end of a war. Now we're hundreds of years past that, right? But we're still having that same situation
and we're
where
still fighting the same fight even now, generations later. And if it's like because they had to go and tell them more than one time to free the slaves and then do something to force them to free the slaves, it's like they say we the law. What they say during the Capitol riots, we are the law.
well, let's
They
think
don't
about
have
that
to
too.
abide by it.
It's not just the fact that they think that this issue, because I could be we can go modern with it right now, but also understand that back then, right? There's a quote, right? There was a guy, Henry Ravenel, right? He actually uh, at the freeing of the slaves, because they told these people that you get 40 acres and a mule. They lied to him and told them they would get it. He actually was scared that they was going to take his land. So you know what this former Confederate did? He went and got the South, so familiar where we are right now. He went and got the Union soldiers and told them, "Hey, could you come here and tell these former slaves that my land is not their land, and that they are expected to remain here and work for me, and I'm supposed to pay them, but they have to work for me, and they can't take my land, and they can't attack me." This at the heart of it, at the beginning of it, stated the idea of using the federal government, using authority to go along with it. Earlier in the early episode, we talked about Order 3, at which they told them that basically you can't come run up here to the military for help, which was completely against what the Emancipation had said 2.5 years before. So until the 13th Amendment was ratified, they were able to get away with a lot of things because they still tried to put slavery, as you said, in another name, right? They tried to shuffle it. So we see still a lot of that right now.
And it's like, you know, I'm not saying that, this is a bad thing to make it a federal holiday, Juneteenth, but it's a start. The acknowledgments of everything that happened in Tulsa is a start, but it really isn't going to be over short of reparations because there's no other way for you to say, I'm sorry, and for you to, we have overcome so much. We've been nothing, and you can't hold down what is innate in us, which is victory, victorious. You, no matter how you strip a queen or a king, you can't stop them from being a king and a queen and their descendants from being kings and queens. So nothing short of saying I'm sorry, as in giving reparations, will be looked at as being sufficient. And I think they know that. And I think that it's slowly coming because they do know and they have acknowledged. And it's not just because, oh, the minorities are now going to be outnumbering what was once known as the majority. and that's how we're going to get it because we're going to give it to ourselves. No, I think in order for us all to live peaceably, happily, and lovingly, this is going to be a united effort, and this is the way to do it. And
Well,
this
it's always
Juneteenth
been.
holiday is a start.
It's never been a self-contained effort. There were whites who were beaten, killed, and died too during the Civil War, during the Civil Rights movement. So it's never that. I
Right,
want to
but
close.
them as an entire culture,
I do want to
all of
close
them as an
though.
entire culture.
I do want to close though with some seriousness here, because people have told us that today also was the end of slavery and mistreatment. And one of the things that I definitely want us to know is that that is not the case. I wanted to use the episodes to give primary source material. There was a slave named Susan Merritt, and she remembered that when they was told that they was free, lots, and I'm going to use her language, lots of niggas was killed after freedom because the slaves, they were turned loose right at freedom, and they was told they was free, but they wasn't. But they hears about it and they runs away to freedom. And in Harrison County, and they owners have them bushwhacked. They shot them down. You could see lots of niggas hanging in trees in Sabin Bottom right after freedom because they caught them swimming and they hung them as an example. One man said, I always think of my old master as the one who freed me. And it wasn't until 20 years later when my grandkids told me about Lincoln the Emancipator, because the white man wanted me to think that he, out of the generosity of his heart, freed me.
Mm.
We have to understand this holiday because it's a holiday now. But we lie, and we would be wrong to say it was the end. We know that people were still in slavery all the way into the 1870s. We know that they were being mistreated, murdered, and killed. We know that the rise of the Klan came in 1865, the first Klan. We know that they were terrorized and that the president, Ulysses Grant, had to send federal troops down to stop them from killing black men, women, and children. So I'm going to end that with all of that horror that happened. And I'm going, because we talk about that on Erudition a lot. But I'm going to end and I want to ask you, because you just said, it takes all of us to be together and all of us, and that's what this holiday was hopefully will do. But I'm going to ask you, uh, given where we are, given what I just said, that sounds so much about like where we are today. Is there hope for the idea that Juneteenth will bring us together? As you said, you hope that it is, but is that a real hope, given that we are now being told we can't even share this history?
Well, I don't know who said we can't share it, but you know, they say same sex people can't be. They say you can't jump further than this. You can't do this. You can't do. You God gave us free will. The only one that can stop us from doing what we want to do and what we will to do is us. We are bound by our own free will, and our faith drives that and supports that. And only God can judge us. So let that be. Let that
Okay, so
be.
you want to throw some Tupac on the God can just
Yeah, let God judge us. And this is just the beginning. It's something that everybody knows is much needed, long awaited for, and highly desirable positive
So if this
change.
is a step, let's end it with this. If this is a step, then we need to be talking about reparations. We need to be talking about reparations. And we need to be talking
Yeah,
about.
instead of people saying that, oh, this isn't enough, tell people what you want. Speak it, claim it, talk it into existence instead of complaining, stomping your feet, whining, money, and complaining and sucking your thumb, appeasing yourself, and complaining about how this isn't enough. Tell what you want. Free schooling, anything made of 100% cotton, free. Whatever it is, say,
No,
speak it.
that's okay. I didn't keep that cotton, but I would that's too close to, but I do
I
think
mean, I'm just saying.
that we should be talking about reparations, and we should be talking about realistic reparations for the descendants of African American slaves, because the history is what it is. We should be teaching this
Well, it's
history.
not just the descendants of the slaves, but all African American people, because we all know if you try to go to Africa, they say, well, you only a half breed, so we have to be compensated.
No, I stress the idea, Tina, of African Americans because this is the thing. This is the thing. They stressed it.
They did,
You hold people
everyone.
to what they stressed. They stressed the idea of us being different than them,
And
and
you
they
know
stressed
what?
it to a
It would
point
be
of
even
death.
better if, reparations was okay, you have the freedom to move about free of charge wherever you want to go. So if you want to fly wherever you want to fly, that's a part of your reparations because you were stolen. And if you weren't stolen, it'd be easier for you to travel in Africa and Jerusalem
Most
and
of us
all
don't
of
even
those
know
places. We
where
may
we
not.
come from.
And that's a part of stealing it, and giving it back to us so
No,
we'll have the freedom
I
to
think
go and
reparations
find it.
is a when we talk about Juneteenth, we talk about those people who were denied freedom for the better part 2.5 years, and then
And what better way to give us our freedom back?
even when they got their freedom, they couldn't leave. They were told, and like she said, they were shot and they were killed, they were murdered. So it's a financial thing. I don't know. I'm gonna make this very clear because they told them in the general order to stay where they were to work because they knew that the South had been burned to the ground and that Texas had been untouched because there hadn't been any wars in Texas. So they wanted the crops and they needed those black people to deliver them crops.
Hmm.
So this is a financial monetary thing. This has always been a financial monetary thing. When we talk about neighborhoods, Ferguson and Baltimore, Chicago, we're talking about a financial thing where they pull us over, they do things to us so that our tickets, our money pay for those cities. In places in Chicago, the water bills in the minority side are higher than
Gentrification.
the affluent
Hmm.
side. It has always been about money. So as we close this Juneteenth, we need to understand that I get what you're saying. Freedom to travel, money. Where what's they say in that
Well, not
movie?
just
Where
money,
is the
because
money?
you should be free to fly on any airlines, any train,
Hey, I
it
can if I could
point A to
afford it.
B.
If I could,
But
if I
see,
got the money.
that should be a part of the reparation. That should be, you should never have to pay to travel anywhere
Well, let's
because
be
they hold
clear.
us back. They took us here and they hold us back, and one of the methods of keeping us enslaved is restricting our mobility,
No, you could go.
and a part of the
No, you could
freedom.
go anywhere you want to, all over the world. Money, monetary. Focus
But it's
on
not
that.
just money,
No, you're
because
not
you can have
understanding me.
money and not
Wealth.
feel free to travel.
No, that's not true. You can have money.
Look at
You
what
can.
happened with Oprah.
Oprah could
She
travel anywhere
she felt free
she
to,
could
she
travel
had
anywhere she
money,
wants
she
to.
felt free to go wherever she
I'm
wanted to go.
sure.
And when she got in that store, they was like, black
And I
lady.
and I find it very funny that you talk about you want to fly when you won't get on a plane. So I don't
I'm
look
not saying me in particular. I'm
exactly.
just
So
saying
don't put
people
anything. I'm
should be
sure that
free to try whatever means that they want
everybody
without
who
paying.
watches this episode is going to tell you money over whatever you said. All right. Well, we didn't want to make this too long. As I said, hey, I hope everybody
Yeah,
commemorated Juneteenth.
people vote. Write in the comments and say which would you rather have, the freedom to travel
As my
A
dad
to
often
B to
says,
include
no,
locally
as
on
my
any
dad
means of transport you want, and you don't have to own a car because
as
really
my
you
dad
never own
often
a car.
says, the
They tax the crap out of
MONE
you.
to the Y is what they want. And that's what they're asking for.
Freedom,
They don't have to be
freedom,
just pure cash. You can give me a stock, give me something else, something that's worth. All right,
freedom,
look, we
because
got to
they
get ready to get
tax
out of
us
here.
anyway.
We got to get ready to get out of here. We don't want to, like I said, keep this too long. But hey, this has been a great discussion. We covered some things real quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, support Erudition Network. We gave you 3 episodes today so that you could talk about Juneteenth and talk about those issues in my family. I thank you all for coming on, my sons, my wife, because we have these discussions in our house and we want you to be able to discuss these things freely, even if you use us as background noise. All right, I love you. Tina, thank you for
Don't
coming
forget
on.
to comment. Freedom.
I'm going to win that vote
Hashtag
anyway.
freedom.
I win that vote anyway. All right, I love you. Thank you for coming on. And ladies and
No
gentlemen,
problem.
we are out of here. And hey, see you guys when we get back on and we do our interactive. Thank you. Click that like and that share on Erudition. Have a good one.
Freedom.